All right, one last look at your traffic and weather for your ride in here on your Monday morning. Do have a cleanup of an accident right at Gervais and Sumter Street, so still having some delays through the area there, so be careful as you're making your way here through town. Today, it's going to be cloudy with a chance of an afternoon evening shower and storm, high of 87. Tomorrow, similar forecast, high of 84. It's your traffic and weather on your Monday here in the game. Oh, 9 o'clock on your Monday morning. Welcome in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head along with you. Jack Veltri, I believe he is still caught up in that accident or in the traffic of the accident right outside our studios here at Sumter and Gervais Street. I was driving in as all the fire trucks and ambulances and all that stuff were going by. Looked like a pretty nasty scene out there. Hopefully everybody is okay, but Jack should hopefully be in here in a couple of minutes, as we got a lot of things to dive into over the course of the next couple of hours. As I can officially say, happy August. That's right. We entered the 8th month of the year, and college football is going to be happening later on this month. Week 0 is only, do the math in my head here, 26 days away. Only less than 4 weeks now until until a number of teams, including North Carolina, TCU, Southern California, among others, going to be in action on the last Saturday in August. That obviously sets the table for what's going to be happening in week number 1 on Labor Day weekend. So looking forward to that. We're going to dive in to the watchability of week 0 coming up a little bit later on in the show. Also, of course, the news of the weekend in the sports world is what happened with Tariq Skubal, the Detroit Tigers, and the Los Angeles Dodgers, his new home over the weekend. We'll get into that a little bit later on in the show as well. And debate, are the Dodgers ruining baseball? Are you enjoying the MLB product less because of what the Dodgers have done, not just with Tariq Skubal trade, but with everything else that's been going on the past couple of years of them snatching up all of the free agents, or all the high-level free agents at least, like Infinity Stones here in the past couple of years, en route to winning, obviously, multiple World Series, potentially being well on their way to winning yet another one. So we'll debate that a little bit later on in the show as well. Hopefully everybody had a great weekend. Appreciate everybody that came out and hung out with myself and Elijah Campbell out at Westco Brew and Bowl on Saturday. We were hanging out there from 11 until 1, helping collect school supplies as the school year is just about ready to start. And I can say, hanging out there for even just the 2 hours I was there, may have been more people coming out later, and may have been some people that dropped off some stuff earlier, but it looked like we had a pretty good amount of stuff that got brought. Shout out to all the listeners that came out there and brought stuff and hung out for a little bit. Real cool setup out there, by the way. My first time out there at Westco Brew and Bowl. It's an old Piggly Wiggly that they've now converted into a bowling alley, but you got a bar in there, you got an arcade in there. Really, really cool setup. And Elijah and I and the whole crew that was out there with us certainly enjoyed being out there. So real cool to get to experience that. And again, shout out to everybody that did come out and bring school supplies, hang out for a little bit, and all that. I believe Jay and Terry are going to be doing some shows out there during football season as well. So if you didn't get the chance to experience it with us on Saturday, you'll get the chance to hang out with those guys coming up here starting in a couple weeks when football officially gets here. Jack Veltri has made his way into the studio. I saw that accident as I was coming in, all the fire trucks and stuff.
Is that what it was?
Yeah. Were you right here at Sumter?
Yeah, I was literally right out in front of the State House.
Yeah, as I was pulling around the corner to come in to the coming to the parking deck, I saw one car that was in an accident, and all the fire trucks were like pulling up on scene. So I'm like, okay, I got through this. I got here at the right time to prevent getting caught in something really long and delayed, like unfortunately you did apparently.
Yeah, and then getting into the parking garage, it was finding a spot was not easy because all the visitor spots that are on the floor where the bridge is, all taken. So, I had to keep going up, and it's like 9 o'clock. Like, I got to find a spot. And so I kept going up, and I eventually found a spot. But yeah, it's not like I left late today. I left. I actually probably left a few minutes early today. So
when you texted me, I knew exactly what you were getting into. So I figured it was probably going to be a little bit backed up out there when I saw it coming in. So no, you're all good. Besides that, hopefully you had a good weekend.
No, man, we had a great weekend. It was busy, man. We let's see. Saturday we went into Greenville for the morning just to hang out, and it was a lot of fun. And then Saturday night we went to celebrate a few friends' birthdays, and then yesterday. Yeah, we made a big purchase yesterday. We bought a Costco membership.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I know.
Now you're really homeowners.
I know, dude. I have my Costco card. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's awesome. That was fun. We finally got the place. I think at this point we're pretty much like settled in.
Okay.
Like we cleaned up everything yesterday. We moved everything in and like unpacked everything. So I think we're in just about as good of a shape as you can be in right now. And the place is looking great. It's coming along really well. So very productive weekend. Oh, and of course, we went to go see Spider-Man last night. Again, well, for me,
saw it a second time.
For me again, for Caroline, it was her first time seeing it, and she loved it. It was great. So there were some tears shed. So it can definitely be that type of movie.
Now, does she give like reviews and ratings like you do?
I ask her for her ratings, and then I put them on my Twitter. So she gave it an 8.5 out of 10.
Okay,
so.
that's pretty solid.
Yeah. So she really liked it.
What's your collective score would round out to what then?
Together, her and I?
Yeah, what was yours?
I guess mine was a 9. Hers was an 8.5.
Like an 8.7?
Yeah, somewhere in the middle there. So
pretty solid.
Yeah, and then I just saw Spider-Man's getting an IMAX release on Friday. So
third time.
I know. I texted her and my brother, and I'm like, because we're all very much into these, and I'm like, well, I guess we're going to see this. So
the Marvel has got Jack Feltry's wallet in a chokehold right now.
Yeah, Spider-Man, man. It's something, man. It's got everyone. I mean, did you see the numbers at the box office? I mean, this movie made nearly $1 billion in its opening weekend. That's unheard of. That does not happen. The only time it's ever really happened is Endgame when that came out. But that was years, over a decade of different Marvel movies adding up. This is just a Spider-Man movie, the follow-up to No Way Home. It's nuts, man. So, but overall, very good weekend. What about you?
So Saturday we were out at Westco Brewing Bowls. I was mentioning as you were walking in here, we did the school drive and all that. Really cool place out there. Never been out there before. Really nice setup, and definitely gonna have to go back there and hang out. But yeah, other than that, just kind of hung around. I don't know. It's kind of, the weather wasn't great.
It was.
Like it rained yesterday and stuff like that, so didn't really have. I enjoy nice sunny, even when it's really hot days of just being outside, doing whatever, and it just didn't really open up the opportunity to do that. So just kind of hung around. That was kind of chill weekend.
Yeah. Now
only get a few more of those for football season.
Yeah. Now I'm enjoying these last few days. I'm gonna try to enjoy the last few days because once camp gets rolling, man, it's like work is always busy, but like it definitely feels like it just feels like you don't have time to do anything when it's like football's going on. But anyway, so what are we at? 33 days away?
33 days, that's right.
Did you start talking about it before? Or?
I've not gotten into 33 days yet, so you came right at the right time.
I've not missed anything. Let's go.
I dove through a couple different things on where to go with 33, but I settled on 1,333, which was the total net rushing yards for South Carolina season ago, which was the second lowest in the Shane Beamer era. I don't think that really comes as much of a surprise. Obviously, we know with Kendall Briles taking over as the offensive coordinator, got a lot of things going to be different with this team, including in the run game. Here's what he had to say about it on Thursday at Birdies with Beamer with Jay and Terry.
Yeah, I mean, if you talk to any defensive coordinator, if you were to have Clayton on him and you ask him, probably what's the most important thing you got to do week in, week out, he's going to say we got to stop the run. So as an offense, we got to run the ball. and so that goes hand in hand. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. Just spit the ball on the perimeter are considered runs for us. A lot of our stuff is what we call mixed plays, but RPO based, and it kind of depends on what the defense does. And I got fans or direct messages to my Twitter. Why are you throwing the ball there? Well, that's because the defense is telling us to throw the ball. Like, we're reading these guys, and so as long as our quarterback's making really good decisions, then our offense is built to operate at a high level based on the way that the defensive players react. And so you got to be able to run the football, especially in this league, and it's hard to do it. And you got to find, creative ways to be able to do it. If you line up and they see your formations and you are lined up, and they know it's inside zone, like, these guys are good. They're hard to block. And as soon as they know where the ball's at, they're going to shed blocks and they're going to get to the football. Man, it's just the way it is. And so there's a little bit of smoke and mirrors involved with it, and that's our job as coaches, to be able to figure out how we can do it and do it in creative ways.
So, again, a new set of eyes, a new set of, play calls when it comes to running the offense this year. And looking at the run game in particular, I think it's interesting because I went back and looked at the numbers that the Browns offenses at TCU had, and they were usually kind of around the middle part of the Big 12 the past 3 years, all of them under 2,000 yards, but he had Josh Hoover at quarterback, who is not a mobile quarterback, more of a sit-back, pocket passer type of guy. Years prior, when he was at Arkansas, particularly with KJ Jefferson, for a couple seasons, they were extremely good when it came to running the football, combination of that and Rocket Sanders as well. As in the 2 seasons with KJ, he had, or the team in a total had just shy of 3,000 yards in 1 year, and then just over 3,000 yards in 2022. So big difference in the run game when it comes to what Kendall Briles is able to give you with a mobile quarterback compared to not having one.
Yeah, no, totally. So I think if he's able to get the most out of Sellers, we're going to see a season, I think, similar to 2 years ago, where I don't think it's like Sellers just run free, take off and run at any given moment. Like that certainly could be a part of it, but I think we're going to see a lot more, like, I don't know if designed is the right way to put it, but I think we'll see something similar to what we saw with the guys that he's worked with in the past, right? And at the same time, look, if Sellers is going to be able to run the way that he can, we've seen in his game before, you got to have, decent enough. It all goes back to the O-line. As annoying as it is to say every single time, everything circles back to the offensive line, but you also have to have a decent enough run game, right? You have to have some form of a running back that is competent enough to where it's like, hey, you actually have to watch out for the running back as well, because if Sellers is your top option to run, which, hey, maybe he is, and maybe that's not going to be a problem, but to me, I think, like, you can't just have Sellers be your top option. You have to have someone else that poses a little bit of a threat, just so defenses don't have a spy specifically just waiting for Sellers to run at any given moment. They got to be watching out for whoever it is in the backfield as well, whether it's Matt Fuller, Christian Clark, Jawarren Howell, Jabri Coleman, whoever it may be. They've got to keep an eye on that guy out there too.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll get into what Kendall Briles had to say about scripting plays in a moment, because one phrase you're going to hear a lot is mixed plays, right, which is his term for RPOs, where, again, you're putting the power in Lenore Sellers' hands to read what the defense is doing. He can either keep it himself, hand it off to the running back, or throw it as well. And we believe, we saw it a couple years ago, we think that, or we know that Lenore Sellers thrives in those type of things, and putting more of that control in his hands, I think it's something that's going to help this offense thrive. And I fully expect him to be using his legs quite a lot this year, not the way that he was seemingly chained a little bit in the Shula offense last year.
Yeah, totally. I think we will see him get back to that 24 version. To what extent, we don't know. Maybe it's past that extent. Maybe it's an even better version. That's what you would hope by year 3 of being a starting quarterback in the SEC. I know a lot's changed between 2 years ago and now. A new coordinator obviously is the biggest change. But, yeah, you're hoping that you can get Lenore's back to that player he was a couple years ago. And part of that is that ability to run the football.
Yeah. We'll get more of what Kendall Briles had to say coming up next, including his philosophy on scripting the opening plays of the game. The number of scripted plays might surprise you a little bit. We'll get into that coming up next. It is The Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Feltry on your Monday here on The Game.
All right, everyone at AAA Heating and Air, home comfort is their top priority. Give them a call today at 803-677-1500 to schedule a seasonal maintenance appointment. Let AAA Heating and Air's qualified technicians put your mind at ease with a thorough inspection and cleaning of your heating and cooling system. Join their popular AAA Comfort Club to take advantage of special extras such as flexible visits, added discounts, and priority scheduling. AAA Heating and Air also offers indoor air quality products that work with your HVAC system to improve your home's air quality. Clean the air eliminates common household odors, removes allergens, pollutants, and can even improve sleep and reduce the spread of some viruses that are out there. So go to call3AAtoday.com for more info. Again, call3Astoday.com for more info. Tell them Jack Veltri from 107.5 The Game sent you on over.
All right, welcome back in. Extra Point. I'm Tyler Head, Jack Veltri here on your Monday on the Game. Again, 33 days away from kickoff between South Carolina and Kent State. And on that day, we're finally going to get to see the Kendall Browse offense in action. Been talking about it for now 8-9 months. No spring game to even get a glimpse of it. You guys, even in your availability for spring practice, not like you got to see those guys out there running plays. So it's been kept under wraps this entire time. And I don't know, this is the most I've anticipated something going into a season since I've been doing this job. How about you?
Yeah, no, totally. It's crazy that we're already here, man. It feels like a couple months ago. It was like, we were talking about baseball all summer with the coaching search and whatnot, and now we're finally here.
Yeah, we are. And again, in 33 days, we'll finally get to see the offense in action. And of course, we know every offensive coordinator likes to script out the first handful of plays, different numbers depending on which coordinator we're talking about, typically somewhere in the area of 10 to 15. And that's something that Ken O'Brien's talked about again with Jay and Terry this past Thursday when out there at Birdies with Beamer. Here's what he had to say about his philosophy on scripting early plays in a game.
So I've started scripting about the first 6 plays, and I've done that about 3 years now, and maybe 4. But I think it's good. It allows, as a coaching staff, to target guys, get certain formational looks that you want to see. That way, you know how they're going to play them. So it allows you to do some things and target some guys as you want to get the ball. And then after that, you know, you're playing football, and obviously you got your D&D calls that are going to be critical that go on within a drive, and then you know the rest of the time you're rolling. And if you see things, then you know you hope that you know if it's something that you haven't just worked a ton and you're able to call it, our guys have recall and they're able to go do it.
So when you hear that, what stands out to you?
Well, I think so we know there's 6 scripted plays at the start of the game. There could always be more depending on the game. We'll see. Maybe he's referring to just like week 1 right now in general. But, yeah, and look, go back to last year, not to make it about last year, but, like, we remember how good the scripted drives were for Mike Shula. As bad as things were for this offense last year, those scripted drives were very good at times at the start of games. Who could forget the first drive of the season last year with how – I think that was like the most perfect drive they could have had to open a year.
We were feeling great.
Yeah, you're feeling like, man, this is going to be awesome. You're doing this every single time. Like you're going to be putting up 50 points a game, but that's not how it works. It's not reality. So, and 10 games or 9 games later, he's gone. So, yeah, it's crazy how much things can change. That said, I think there's a joking here. There's a high ceiling to clear with the scripted plays. But there's a lower ceiling to clear with just this offense being any bit better. And I think it's going to make a difference for this team this year because we know what's possible, I think, for this team. We know what this defense can do, right? Even with losing a bunch of guys, Clayton White's always been very consistent over the years. It's just, can you finally get a good enough version of offense to where you don't always have to rely on the defense holding a team to under 20 points a game, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and by the way, to speak to Shula and his ability as a scripted play caller last year on opening drives, they scored 4 times, 3 touchdowns against Virginia Tech, Vanderbilt, and Kentucky, and then they had a field goal against Alabama. They missed a field goal against LSU. Now, it was the second drive, but they had the bad snap on the opening drive that ended up being a fumble, so that was only 1 play. So his scripted plays lasted in the second drive, so they drove far enough down the field. And they had that turnover on downs to the Oklahoma 3 at the end of that drive where they drove down, and then the play calling at the very end was disastrous. But they moved the ball really, really well in those opening drives, and that's great. But again, once you got out of those 10, 15-ish scripted plays that Mike Shula did, his game flow wasn't good. And that's the whole purpose, as Ken O'Brien's kind of laid out there for the scripted plays, is kind of feeling out the defense. What are they giving you? What looks are they giving you on these certain plays? When you do this, how do they respond, right? It allows you to craft your game plan for the rest of the other, 50, 60 some odd plays you're going to be running for the rest of the game. And certain guys are good at creating that script, but not good at calling the rest of the game off of it. And that's what we saw with Shula last year. And we're certainly hoping that Briles is better after those scripted plays in terms of the flow of the game and making sure he puts his offense in the best position to succeed.
Yeah, so I'll be interested to see what first off, what the scripted plays are. Like, is there any creativity in there? Like, is it just basic plays? Like, what are those scripted plays? Like, and typically the scripted plays are like the ones that you want to make sure actually work. So I'll be interested to see how things look at the start of games. But I think I'm way more curious to see. You can script up any plays you want, but it's like, I think there's what separates, I think, how good of a coordinator you are on offense is how you're able to adjust and manage a game and what you call when you don't have the script in front of you, right? What are you calling if it's 4th and 5 and you're in plus territory at the 35-yard line and you're debating, okay, do we go for a hard count here? Do we go for it? Do we run the clock down and take a penalty to move back 5 yards and punt? I mean, there's things like that you just can't just have it ready to go on the clipboard. You gotta draw it up and figure things out in a split second. So, yeah, I think that's really what we're going to learn about this move at offensive coordinator and how good of a change it could be for South Carolina.
Him also saying that he only has scripted plays leads me to believe that his playbook isn't super extensive, right? Which that's not a bad thing, right? If you only have, 8 run plays and 10 pass plays, that's a pretty small playbook. But if you can do a lot of variations off of those, then you still have a lot of options. And what you do pre-snap with, motion and eye candy and all that kind of stuff can lead to a lot of different, options and things throughout the game. So only having those 6 plays, and again, it's not that Kenneth Briles is going to plop his playbook down in front of us, but that leads me to believe that playbook is probably smaller than a lot of other offensive coordinators.
And, correct me if I'm wrong. I just had a thought in my head. But, like, with the making it easier for what you just said there, like, I'm trying to remember if I heard this correctly or not. So I don't know if I did. But I think it was earlier in the spring. Like, didn't Briles, like, say something to the extent of, like, wanting to, like, make it as simple as possible? Like, for the like not overcomplicating it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember if I heard that correctly, or maybe it was Shula who said that last year. I can't remember off the top of my head, but that just made me think of it when you said, like, it's not going to be something like super complicated.
Yeah, I'll have to look back. He may have said something about that.
Maybe
I think
did.
You're right. Don't quote us on that, but I think you may have been right on that. But again, when you only have 6 plays, because again, when you're going through scripted plays, you're trying to do a little bit of everything to get a feel for what works and what doesn't. That, again, you're able to craft the rest of your play calling for the rest of the game around. And the smaller the number of scripted plays, the more I'm going to believe that, well, your playbook's just a little bit smaller, which is fine. It's not a detriment. Again, you had the opposite effect a couple years ago with Marcus Satterfield, who seemingly had 10 billion plays, complex play calls and all those kind of things that wasn't successful on offense. And what happened when Dow Loggins came in the year later, it was all about simplifying and kind of whittling that down, and they did have success with that.
And I maybe I'm wrong on this. I don't know. I only know so much about what goes into a playbook, right, with the offense and whatnot, because I get it could probably be a ton of plays and whatnot. But I feel like having that college-style offense, maybe I'm wrong on this. Maybe it makes it a little bit easier for these guys to understand compared to these pro-style concepts, which, look, if they're going out there and executing it way better this year, then I think that's clearly the case of where, the pro-style concept just did not work for this team last year. Maybe the plays themselves were too complicated for these guys to understand. Whereas the college-style system, you're playing college football, so having a college-style offense maybe caters a lot better and is a lot easier to understand for these guys. But we'll see if that's the case ultimately.
Well, we hope that Kendall Briles calling the offense is going to make it a lot better. But how does the experience help out South Carolina this year? And how does it stack up to last year's national champion? We'll discuss that on the other side. It is The Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Veltri with you here on your Monday on The Game. All right, welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Felcher on your Monday here on the game. Getting closer to the start of the college football season. Again, only 33 days till we see South Carolina in action. And again, a lot of reasons and factors to believe that this team is going to be better than it was one season ago, more akin to what happened 2 years ago where they won 9 games and were at least in the playoff conversation at the end of the regular season. Jack, the other day, Weston, Chris, and I referenced a piece that Chris had wrote on Gamecock Central about the experience level of this South Carolina team this year compared to 2 seasons ago, and the numbers are actually pretty interesting. South Carolina is, in terms of career snaps going into the year, about 3,000 career snaps more experienced on offense and about 5,000 career snaps less experienced on defense. 2024's offense had about 10,000 snaps. This year's offense has 13,000. 2024's defense had about 14,500, and this year's defense has a little under 10,000. When you hear those numbers, what comes to mind for you?
Well, first off, I mean, that 24 team was, especially on defense, that's a great story by Chris, by the way. I mean, it's kind of like mind-boggling just to see, like, that puts into perspective of just how good that group really was in terms of how much experience they had. And then on, like, offense, like, they had a lot of guys with a ton of snaps, and a lot of them ended up being, like, transfer portal pickups aside from, like, your Vershawn Lees of the world who were with the program forever. But, yeah, you know, heading into this year, I think there's a case to be made that they have more experience across the board. And I think it's more than just bringing in transfers. Like, on offense, like, yeah, sure, the entire offensive line, like, with Peak, Poku, Miller, Purvis, like, those guys have a ton of snaps already logged up from over the years. And even some of the guys that you brought in, like Nitro Tuggle, he's a guy with a ton of snaps from his time at Purdue. But then I look at, like, the defense, like, they have a lot of guys that have been with the program for a year already that have started at South Carolina and gotten a ton of snaps, and you were able to bring them back. See, I think that's the big difference in some respects. Maybe, honestly, that 24 defense had a lot of guys that were with the program for multiple years. But I think it's a similar situation here, if not a little bit more, with this year's team, especially on defense and offense, to where you have a lot of guys that have already started at South Carolina, have been in the SEC for over a year. That's certainly going to help.
Well, and, you know, in today's world of college sports in general, you don't have as much carryover from teams year to year where you say, okay, well, this group's been together for 3 or 4 years now. They develop, they're used to playing near each other, and we look at that as a reason for why they can have success. I think we look more towards just overall experience on the team. And look, it's not a guarantee that just because you're an experienced team, you're going to have a lot of success. But when we look at the more successful teams in these past handful of years, they're typically teams that do have a lot of experience and a lot of snaps going into the year.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think here's the thing. At the end of the day, it's great that South Carolina is in a good position to where they've got guys that have been starters, whether it's here or at other schools. Like, you would automatically have to think, like, at least I'm thinking it for sure, like, it's going to make some sort of difference. It almost has to, right? Mm-hmm. But I think at the end of the day, here's the thing. Some of these, like, especially, like, we could speak for the offensive line in particular on this. You're going to have, aside from, like, a Shed Surratt probably, you're going to have all new starters on the offensive line. There's got to be some form of cohesion, chemistry, 5 guys playing as one. Otherwise, if everyone's doing their own thing and not on the same page, well, then you're going to get right back to having the same problems on the offensive line you've had for seemingly the entire Beamer era on that offensive line. So you've got to have cohesion. And I think that goes for any position, quite honestly, but definitely on the offensive line. So, you know, it'll be interesting to see how these new pieces that are coming in and starting fit the puzzle, because quite frankly, 2 years ago, everything just fit perfectly into place. There were no stones really left unturned. Everyone played their part, did their thing, and they were able to get the most out of the guys. That's, I think, at the end of the day, what made that team what they were. Because you don't win 9 games and go on that run at the end of the year if you don't have Kyle Kennard and Demetrius Knight on that defense doing their thing, and Dylan Stewart coming in and Lenore Sellers being the SEC Freshman of the Year. Everything went swimmingly for the most part after getting off to a 3-3 start. This group, they've got guys that can definitely do the same things, I would say, to some degree in terms of fitting the pieces in together, but it has to come together somehow, and that really does start here this week.
Well, and speaking into the experience thing, which, again, this stems from Chris's article on Gamecock Central last week about how the career snaps stack up for this year's team compared to 2 years ago where they had all the success and won 9 games. We'd say Indiana and what they did last year, it was the standard of that, right? Of like, hey, Signetti 2 years ago now, because his second year at the program, took a bunch of guys from James Madison that, yeah, maybe weren't the highest rated guys coming out of high school, but played a ton of college football in their time there, took them to Indiana, in addition to a lot of guys at Indiana that stuck around for Signetti. So you had tons of career snaps across that entire team, and that wasn't the only reason why they won the national championship, but it certainly went a long way, and it's something that Signetti talked about last year with how valuable that experience was up and down the roster. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I would agree with you on that. Like that, I mean, again, with Indiana, I really don't know how they did it. It's just like maybe Signetti's just that good of a coach to where, I mean, that team from 2023 was a 3-win team, and then Signetti comes in and really just changes everything to where they make the playoff in year one. And a lot of it is bringing in guys from different backgrounds and whatnot. But I think it takes the right coach as well. Can Shane Beamer do it? I mean, look, he did it 2 years ago, so I think there's definitely. I think he's got the right. I think he's got better pieces around him now on this coaching staff, to where I think we're going to see the best of this group brought out. Like when I look at this team, I don't see a group that's going 4-8 again. A lot of things would have to go wrong. Injuries would have to happen. Guys would have to underperform. I really do feel like this is a team that is set up to. I don't know necessarily about making the college football playoff, but like, can they like switch up their win total to double it to 8 wins maybe? I think it's certainly in the cards. I think that's definitely possible for this group, because when I look at this team, I see talent. I see a lot of experience, but I see a lot of talent as well that I think is just going to make a big difference.
So I was curious, and look, I'm going to go ahead and put this caveat out there. I'm not saying that Carolina is going to do what Indiana did. I'm not saying they're going to go win the national championship, but great if they did. It'd be certainly great for both of our jobs. But I was curious to see how what last year's Indiana team, career snaps-wise, looked like stacked up against this year's South Carolina team, and I thought the numbers were pretty interesting. So here you go. As I mentioned a moment ago, South Carolina in 2026 is going to bring in 13,656 career snaps on offense. And I did this the same way that Chris broke it down on Gamecock Central. 1 quarterback, 1 running back, 2 wide receivers, 2 tight ends, and 5 offensive linemen to complete the 11 spots there on offense. When I did the same numbers for Indiana prior to last year, so I took all those starters' career snaps and subtracted them from whatever they did this past year, they actually had less on offense than Carolina has going into this year.
Wow.
So Indiana last year, just over, a little bit over what Carolina has coming back this year. So last year, Indiana had 13,909. That's a little under 300 more career snaps on Indiana's offense last year compared to South Carolina's. Now, there is a difference on defense. And again, just like Chris, I did this how he did in terms of 2 edge rushers, 2 defensive tackles, 2 linebackers, and 5 defensive backs, one of those being a nickel corner. Last year's Indiana team had 11,012 career snaps. This year's South Carolina team has 9,449. So a pretty big difference on that one,
Yeah.
which, again, we feel like the defense is always going to be pretty good, right? They've always been pretty good under Clayton White for the most part.
They'll keep you in a game.
They'll keep you in a game, but they may be a unit that, especially out of the gate, may struggle a little bit, right? But you feel like with the experience you have on offense that hopefully can make up that difference, right?
Well, hold on. You're saying the defense might struggle a little bit out of the gate?
Just maybe a little bit slow out of the gate.
I disagree with you. Well, I disagree with you because the first 2 games of the year.
Well, once you get into playing quality opponents,
Okay,
at least.
yeah. But that said,
not talking about the first 2 games.
No, I know. But that said, I feel like there's the first 3 games of the year to go out there and really like knock off some of the rust, get off to a good start. Like I think those first 2 games are going to be so critical for South Carolina. Like yes, they're games that South Carolina should win, no problem, but at the same time, it's like those are the games where you get guys in, you figure out what your rotations are going to look like, you figure out who maybe who else you can rely on in this offense and defense. But no, for sure, like maybe by week 3 when you're facing Mississippi State, who has some real players on offense, like yeah, you might run into a little bit of difficulty. But I think this defense, Clayton White, for the most part throughout his tenure, has always had a pretty solid group that can keep you in a game. And I don't see any reason why, especially with all the experience that they have, that they can't go out there and do it again.
Well, definitely going to be more experience coming back on offense this year, and hopefully that leads to a lot more success in this team being a whole lot better. Again, not saying they're going to do what Indiana did, but I do like the fact that your offensive numbers and career snaps are in a similar vein to what last year's national champions were. We'll come back and wrap up hour number 1. A former Gamecock returning to his other home. I'll tell you about that coming up next. It is The Extra Point on your Monday on the Game. All right, welcome back in. Extra Point. Tyler Head, Jack Felcher wrapping up hour number 1 here on your Monday on the Game. You know, we're only 33 days away from Carolina kicking off, only 26 days away from college football. We do have NFL football later on this week, Jack, at least exhibition football.
Preseason, baby.
Yeah,
Hall of Fame game Thursday, is that right?
That's right. Panthers and Cardinals on Thursday night, and it's something. I'll watch it. Again, are you going to tune in to watch Bryce Young and guys like that? No, because they're not playing. This will be guys trying to make the 53-man roster. But, hey, some football's better than no football.
And we get Hard Knocks tomorrow night.
That's right.
With the defending champion, Seattle Seahawks. So we'll probably get to see some Nicky Minwari, maybe some Ernest Jones. That'd be pretty cool for the South Carolina perspective here. But 9 p.m. tomorrow on HBO and streaming on HBO Max. So that'll be 5 episodes, 1 per the next 5 weeks. So, I mean, look, I think that to me is more exciting than watching some random preseason football. But man, I love it. I mean, the NFL, I don't know. What do you think's better, NFL or college to watch?
Oh, 1,000% college.
Yeah?
Yeah. No,
Not even close?
Yeah. If I had to give one up, it would be the NFL.
Yeah.
No questions asked.
That's crazy. But I will say it's nice that we're getting some form of football back, even if it's basically guys just trying to make the 53.
Well, some NFL news, and we'll get into more as the week goes along, that we learned over the weekend. Jadeveon Clowney returning to the team that drafted him all the way back in 2014 with the Houston Texans, where he spent the first 5 seasons of his career. He's bounced around to various places after that, including last year with the Dallas Cowboys, where he registered 8.5 sacks, which ties for which is the second most he's ever had in a single season in his NFL career. First of all, what do you make of him returning to Houston, which is already a loaded defense, grow one of the best in the NFL a season ago, now getting Clowney back? And two, just Clowney's career up to this point, because it's been interesting to say the least.
Yeah, no, I mean, like you just say, he joins a pretty loaded defense with, Will Anderson and Donnell Hunter, like those guys at the edge spot, plus Clowney, that's a really good group. Even at Clowney's age, like 33, like you said, 8.5 sacks last year. Like, that's a guy that, he doesn't need to be your number one option, but that's a really good 2 or 3 option that you have on that defense there as long as he stays healthy. You're getting some production out of him. And the fact that he's going back to Houston where it all started for him again, he was the number 1 pick in the 2014 draft. I think we could say it did not work to the extent of what you would want out of a number 1 pick. Yes, he was an all-pro at one point. He was a 3-time Pro Bowler with the Texans, but obviously not to the extent of what you would expect with a number 1 overall pick. But it is kind of crazy that he's turned into a bit of a journeyman. Pretty much besides his time with the Browns, it was 1 year with the Seahawks, a year with the Titans, a year with the Ravens, Panthers, and Cowboys. He's bounced around, and now he's back in Houston. I think this will be a good fit for him, especially now that he's older, wiser. He's been in the league for over a decade. This is a guy that is a different player now than when he first entered the league.
Correction a moment ago. 8.5 sacks is actually the 4th most he's ever had in a single season. Had 2 9.5 sack seasons and 2 9-sack seasons. One of those coming in his final year there with Houston. And yes, he dealt with injuries throughout his career, which certainly hasn't helped either, especially in that first year with Houston. So he's not lived up to being the generational edge rusher, the number 1 overall pick that he was picked to be in Houston. But man, this has been a really solid and very respectable career, again, to the point of where he's having close to career numbers going into, last year, where he didn't even play the entire season for the Cowboys. So he plays a couple more games. Who knows what those numbers could have been like. He's still a high-level contributor. The stuff about bouncing team to team is interesting. I don't know if that's internal things, just not getting along with the staff.
He's getting 1-year deals.
He is getting 1-year deals.
That's the thing. He's getting 1-year deals.
He's productive enough to where I feel like these teams would be interested enough in bringing him back for another year.
He's better than some guys at this point. At age 33, to where he's still having 8.5 sacks in a season, you're getting a lot of productivity out of him pretty much every single year at this point. So, yeah, I mean, he's a good option to have. He does not need to be the number 1. Like I said, Will Anderson is the guy for a reason. But, yeah, I mean, why not take a chance on bring him back home for a season here, see what you can get out of him, because that's one of the best defenses in the NFL right there.
Yeah, we'll certainly see. And I believe he never left Houston in terms of living there, even in the years he was doing one-year deals with other teams. So back home there as well, again, after spending his first 5 seasons with the Texans, and we'll see how he does this upcoming year. And again, if he can stay healthy, no reason to believe that he can't be a high-level contributor on a really good defense once again. So we'll see what happens with Jadeveon Clowney. We'll get into some more NFL stuff as the week does move along. But coming up next in hour number 2, we're 26 days away from week number 0. How do we rate the watchability of the first college football games we're going to see this year? We'll dive into that coming up next. It is The Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Veltri on the game. All right, here for our friends over at Twin Peaks. Oh, man, football season is almost here, and you know that the Twin Peaks Lodge is your ultimate destination, not just for football content, but for whatever sports you're into, as they have wall-to-wall TVs with every game, every fight, and every big moment. And don't forget about that delicious scratch-made food from the Twin Peaks Kitchen. They've got burgers stacked high and cooked to order, smoked in-house wings and brisket, signature seasonal specials, and limited time menu options as well. And, of course, signature cocktails and ice-cold drafts, including those 29-degree draft beers served in frosted mugs, which always complete a great trip down to Twin Peaks. Whether it's tonight, tomorrow, this weekend, whenever, get yourself down to Twin Peaks, hang out with the Twin Peaks girls, delivering that signature lodge experience, and enjoy. Twin Peaks, eats, drinks, scenic views. All right, welcome back in. Hour number 2. Extra point on your Monday on the game. In the month of August, camp week, by the way. We'll get into more camp stuff as the week goes along. We hear from Beamer on Thursday, and then things get rolling coming up on Friday, and then we're off and going to at that point, 29 days until kickoff? Yeah, 29 days until kickoff when camp starts on Friday.
Crazy.
As we sit right now, we are 33 days away from Carolina playing and only 26 from the first college football action of this year, that being week 0. I know you're not a week 0 denier like Wes, so I feel comfortable talking about the first slate of college football games with you.
Yeah, I like having some college football. And these are games that actually, like if it were preseason or something, or if college ever had preseason, I'd be like, no. If it doesn't count, I don't care. But since it does count, it's like, all right, look, I remember last year sitting on my parents' couch watching Hawaii and Stanford late at night. I'm like, this is awesome. Like, I missed college football. Like I'm going to be doing probably the same thing again this year.
And I appreciate the fact that we do kind of have that ramp up weekend, right? Because Labor Day weekend, at least for now, until, the NFL decides to take over that weekend coming up in the near future, you have the full-on explosion of week number 1 where you have games from Thursday all the way through Labor Day night on Monday. But I like the fact that we get a little teaser, right? You get a handful of games, and this year you're going to have 8 games on week number 0 to give you a little mix of a little bit of everything. Some games that are legitimately interesting, some games that aren't all that interesting at all, but nevertheless, it's college football, and we're happy to see it make its return. So I want to rate the watchability of the games this year. So we'll do this on a scale of 1 to 10. You don't have to do points or anything like that, just solid numbers in terms of the games we're going to get to watch this year on August the 29th. And we'll start off with the game to kick it all off, the Aer Lingus Classic between North Carolina and TCU. What is Jack Veltry's watchability for that game?
It'll be on. Will I be... Well, do I think it's going to be a great game? I don't even remember the game last year. North Carolina scores first, and then TCU just blows them out of the water.
That was Labor Day night.
That was embarrassing. I don't know, man. I think I don't know enough about what TCU is going to be like this year, but I know North Carolina could be very hit or miss. Probably a miss. I mean, I think it'll be I hope it's not a blowout, but I feel like it's going to be potentially.
So what's your score?
I don't know, honestly. Because, again, I just don't know enough about TCU. I know they don't have Josh Hoover at quarterback, so I would say maybe it's a little closer. Maybe like 35-14, maybe. I don't know.
Like a watchability score.
Oh, watchability score.
Your interest in the game.
Like on a scale of like 0 to 10?
Yeah, 1 to 10. Or, I mean, yeah, just put a 0 if you don't care, I guess.
Just because this is the only game going on at the time, I would probably go ahead and say like a 7 maybe.
Okay. All right. I'd go 7 to 8 for 1. It's the game that starts everything off. Only game going on at that point in time. I don't think it's going to be a competitive game, but my curiosity of how bad North Carolina might end up being for a second year in a row has me want to lock in, right? Because, again, like you said last year, they started off with maybe the best opening drive of anybody in college football and then did nothing to replicate that the rest of the year. And I don't think they're going to be much better this year, but I'm interested to see just how TCU beats them, how severely. You know what I mean? So It's almost a morbid curiosity watching this game.
Yeah. It's going to be appointment television just because it's the first game of the year, and it's also probably the game that's like probably the best and most interesting of the day. Not just because of the location, that's the cool aspect of it. So there's a lot of reasons, I think, to watch this game just to see what's North Carolina going to be like, how the setting out there. It's the first game. But I feel like, I don't know, we'll see how TCU is. I feel like they're probably flying a little under the radar this year.
All right, game number 2, 3 o'clock on NBC. San Jose State visits Southern California. This is the biggest spread of the day, with the Trojans favored by 38.5.
Well, it's on NBC, so it's going to get watched for sure. I would say probably I mean, how bad was San Jose State last year? I'm trying to pull up the record, but like, I mean, I know they weren't great last year at all. Let's see, they were 3-9 last year. Okay, so Southern Cal is probably going to win this game by a lot. My watchability score, I'd probably say, is like a 5. Like, this feels like a game you watch until halftime, and then you see the game's a blowout, then you turn on another game, which is the one we're going to talk about next.
Yeah, I'll give it a 4. Again, it's on. I guess you can look to see what Lincoln Riley's doing with this year's version of this team and new guys they have on offense and defense and stuff like that. But this game's not going to tell us anything about how good or bad Southern California is. It's a tune-up game for them in week 0. Now we get to a really interesting one that almost took place in Brazil, that being NC State and Virginia in an ACC clash. Virginia, the 5.5-point favorite at home in Charlottesville.
And this does not count as an ACC game, correct?
That's a good question.
Like, that's how it was last year when they met.
Let me see.
Like, I don't think it counted towards the ACC schedule, like, or record or whatever.
No, so they both, because they play 9 conference games this year. So yeah, this one will count.
Oh,
this will not be a non-conference game.
Okay.
This will count for both teams.
Because I think when last year they met,
right,
it did not count as a conference game.
And the ACC's done that before, where you have conference opponents play non-conference games.
Yeah.
But this one will count towards the ACC standings.
Okay, because they now have 9. Okay, that makes more sense. Okay, I don't know. I mean, Virginia, coming off a very good year last year, could have been better. Could have been a college football playoff team, but you know that's in the past. NC State, Dave Doran, I maybe the Wolfpack decent this year. This is actually probably on paper, this is probably the best game of the day in terms of, like, I think this is a game that potentially goes down to the wire. I'd say 3:30 slot, ESPN. Not another game on for another 2 hours afterwards. You know, San Jose State and USC is going to be a blowout probably. I'd give this to like an 8.
I'm going to go all the way to 10.
Yeah.
I think, for one, like you said, probably the most competitive matchup. The stakes of it being a conference game, so one team's going to start off 0-0, one team's going to start off 1-0, and what could be, we think Miami's going to kind of control the ACC, but you don't know who that second team's going to be. Interesting to see, because again, Virginia surprised a lot of us last year with being in the conference championship, and really, had they won, they could have been in the college football playoff, but they weren't. And NC State always somewhere around 8 to 9 wins. So yeah, this is probably game of the day, and for that, I give it a 10.
Okay, good deal. No, I like that thinking there.
All right, the Bizarro Gamecocks and Jacksonville State head to the Fargo Dome to take on NDSU in their FBS debut. Where are you at on this one?
Like a 4. I don't really care. I mean, we'll see. It'll get turned on when there's a commercial break, but I'm not watching this intently probably.
See, these are the kind of games that I love. Anytime I can watch North Dakota State, because they've been such a standard at the FCS level, I love to, especially in the FCS playoffs en route to them winning as many national championships as they have. I always have a soft spot for Jacksonville State for a variety of reasons, and like, it's not a 10 for me, but I think it's probably a solid 8 as well.
Okay.
I will definitely be as locked in on this game as I can be.
See, this is a week 0 sicko right here.
This is a week 0 sicko matchup just for me. By the way, the line on that game is North Dakota State favored by 7.5. A lot of really tight games here. These are expected to all be pretty competitive.
And I'm glad it's not your traditional week 1 of like cupcake going up against powerhouse, right? Like, these are actually games that should be fairly interesting to watch just from a competitive standpoint.
Next game, Sacramento State goes to Eastern Michigan, 6:30 on ESPN+.
Now, this is Sacramento State's another team joining from the FCS to the FBS. So, a little interesting to watch from that standpoint. I'm going to probably say like a 0, honestly. Like, it's on ESPN+. If it were on cable or YouTube TV, yeah, I'd probably flick it on for a minute, but I don't know. I'm not going all the way to ESPN Plus to watch this game, so probably like a 0.
A 0 for you. I'll go 3.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to have an eye on all these games to a degree, checking back and forth. If it's competitive late in the game, I'll have it on the main TV or whatever, just see it come down to the wire. I'm not expecting this to be anything too compelling. I'll give it a 3.
Okay, we got Hawaii and Stanford next.
That's right.
This was
rematch
what
last year.
What I would argue was the game of week 0 last year,
where the defensive lineman got penalized for celebrating too much after his sack that ended up giving a key penalty yardage to Hawaii that set him up for the win.
Yeah, so it's at Stanford this year, so this is the the return game for Hawaii here. Something about Hawaii, man. I just like the vibe with Hawaii. Maybe it's just being in Hawaii. That just seems to be like a really cool spot to go. But Hawaii at Stanford, ACC Network, 7 o'clock. I'd say this is like an 8, man. I think it's going to be, because neither of these teams are going to be great. Stanford, they're not what they used to be. Hawaii, they were okay last year. I would say probably like, I would say like an 8. Like, I'm going to have this game on. Will I watch it all the way through? Who knows? But it's something to have on in the background when everything else is going on.
I'll go with a 9 because, for one, it's got the shortest odds, with Stanford being favored by 4. It's got the capability of being maybe not as not competitive, as compelling as NC State and Virginia, because that does have conference stakes. But this is a game that probably should, between two what are likely going to be not great teams, should be maybe a messy, clunky, weird kind of game that could be fun for 4 quarters.
Yeah, totally. So we'll see.
Same time as that on the CW, you got Florida State playing host to New Mexico State, as Norvell maybe in his final opening game as Florida State head coach if things don't go better. This game is second to Southern California and San Jose State in terms of odds. FSU favored by 30.5 points.
Like a 2. It's on CW as well. It's like, come on. Can't get this one on ACC Network. But, yeah, I mean, I'll probably throw it on for a few minutes, hopefully early on. But, yeah, I mean, at that time, Western Carolina is going to be on. Caroline's alma mater. So we'll see if they're on TV at all or on streaming. But I'll probably be watching that over Florida State, probably whooping up on New Mexico State.
Is Western Carolina playing week 0? I don't have that on my thing.
They're playing. So, yeah, FCS, but they're playing week 0. And I was texting Caroline about it. So I don't know. I don't think we're going to go.
Okay.
But I think we're both busy that weekend. But, it'll be on, and we'll probably be watching.
I'm going to give it a 7. I go same thing with TCU in North Carolina. More of a curiosity because I don't think FSU is going to be that much better. And if they're struggling with New Mexico State, that sets the tone for what's probably going to be a very long year for them once again. So I will have an interest in seeing just how bad it can be, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And then we got one more game to close it out.
That's right.
Memphis at UNLV, 10 o'clock p.m. Dan Mullen going up against Charles Huff.
This is a good G5 matchup.
I like this. This is I wish this wasn't at 10 o'clock. I wish this was at 7. But I understand it's West Coast, but it's on Fox. Dude, I'm going I know it's at 10, and I don't even know if I'm going to be up at this point. I don't even know what I'm going to be doing at that time of night. But I would say if I'm up and I got nothing going on, I'm watching this. I'd go like a 9.
9? I'll match your 9 on that one. I think for one, competitive. Again, Dan Mullen's done some good things at UNLV. We'll see how Memphis does in the transition from Brian Silverfield to Charles Huff. UNLV, by the way, the 5.5-point favorite, but fun little nightcap to what I think is going to be an overall pretty solid day of football for week 0 standards.
Yeah, it's not the worst slate, but it's not the best, but it's not the worst. It's like there's a game at 12 o'clock to watch with North Carolina UNC. There's a couple games to watch at 3 o'clock window, and then you got a nightcap at 7 with a few options, and then you have the 10 o'clock, which I'm going to say that's the most underrated game of the day.
Yeah. Last year on week 0, you had several competitive games. In that one, my wife and I went and got some hot wings in the middle of the day and came back to watch the rest. And as I was getting the wings, I was getting that panic of oh my God, I'm missing something right now, which I miss that feeling during college football weekends because there's always something going on, always something happening,
man.
and I was rushing to get back home to seeing what was happening on TV, and I look forward to having that feeling again.
Yeah, man, it's nice, man. So I'm looking forward to it.
Well, that'll be when college football officially starts back, and till then, we do still have some legal things to work out, including the Protect College Sports Act and a new ruling on the class of 2022. We'll tell you about those coming up next on The Extra Point on your Monday here on The Game. All right, welcome back into the Extra Point. Tyler and Jack on your Monday here on the game. Thanks to Troy on the live stream, who did remind me, the ACC does have the silly rule now where some teams will play 8 conference games and some teams play 9.
Yes,
that is in reference to...
because it's an uneven number of teams, right?
Right. Well, and basically if you play Notre Dame, then you won't play a 9th conference game. And if you don't play Notre Dame, then you will. NC State and Virginia, neither one of them play Notre Dame, and they do play 9 conference games. So week 0 will count for both of them towards the conference standings.
Okay. Makes sense.
So just to clarify. But
Okay.
I'd forgotten about that dumb thing that they're doing.
Thank God for our text line, right?
Yes, appreciate it.
You never know when we're going to need those answers from the outside.
That's right. Now, again, that what they're doing is dumb, but it is what it is at this point. Speaking of things that are what they are, the legal aspects of college sports never seem to go away, and that's kind of the main talking point for a lot of the offseason these days. And the Protect College Sports Act has been something on the table for many months now that's trying to get pushed through the Senate. And as of going into the weekend, there was a lot of doubt, right, that it was going to have enough steam behind it to get the support it needed to pass. Then on, I believe, Friday night, the SEC and the Big Ten both put out joint statements now being in support of it because, again, they were kind of opposed to it in the way that it was currently written for a long period of time that they believed was going to hurt the bill's chances of being able to pass through. Still a lot of things, or excuse me, it's in the Senate right now. It is in the Senate right now. Still a lot of things needing to be done with this for it to get final approval signed by the president to go into effect. But the SEC and the Big Ten signing off on it, giving their thumbs up for how it's currently written, does help its chances quite a bit.
Boy, it's crazy, isn't it, that these guys from the class of 2022 may get another year. Well, potentially, right? I mean, that's from a separate lawsuit. Again, there's a lot of legal things going on. That's from the 5-and-5 thing that went into effect earlier on this summer. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
so that doesn't have a direct correlation to the Protect College Sports Act.
Oh, okay. I know. There's so much going on, it feels like.
So the Protect College Sports Act is the bipartisan bill that was put forth by Ted Cruz and Maria Cantwell. Both sides of the island support on this. And there's a lot in this, but it includes a lot of things like a legitimate salary cap, limiting transfers, and all that kind of stuff that would kind of get college sports back to less of a chaotic playground than it is right now.
It just feels like there's there's a lot going on, but there's no structure to it, right?
Yeah, right.
And I think it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to have structure, right? Because what's the NCAA doing, right? I mean, they're the ones.
They have no power.
They're the ones that are supposed to be in control, but yet they have no grip on what's going on, it seems like. Because, I mean, shoot, you can just get a lawyer and have a lawsuit, and you're probably going to win. I mean, that's just how it goes. So it's like having some sort of balance and rules in place and actual structure that people have to follow, schools, players, universities. I think that just makes things a lot better. And in this day and age where it feels like things are heading towards like the pro sports route with guys getting paid now millions of dollars, yeah, there needs to be a little bit of a structure to have, like, having a salary cap. Maybe that will help out to some degree. I don't know.
Now, what you're talking about is the preliminary injunction off of the 5-and-5 rule. So earlier on this summer, the NCAA put in place the 5 years to play, the 5 years of eligibility for all student athletes going forward. And one of the questions was, okay, if you just ran out of eligibility, do you get grandfathered in? And the answer was no. Now, we talked about this when it happened. I said, okay, you ran out of eligibility before the rule existed. I can understand why there wouldn't be preserved eligibility past that. However, that didn't stop a litany of lawsuits from being launched against the NCAA. And Judge Charlotte Sweeney on Friday in a district court in Colorado granted a class-wide preliminary injunction that requires the NCAA to declare all high school class of 2022 athletes who exhausted all seasons of eligibility this past spring to be eligible going forward. Now, there's a lot of caveats to this because, first of all, when I heard this on Friday, Jack, I thought, oh, my God, we've just opened up Pandora's box because you have an entire class of athletes that would be eligible to play immediately, once again, I'll get to some of the clarifications on that in a moment. But when you first heard this, what'd you think?
Pretty nuts, honestly. It really is. It's crazy to think about. Now, this is happening right before the start of football season. Truthfully, I don't know like what that's going to look like in terms of like adding guys. I mean, I'm sure you'll mention this in one of the caveats, but I saw this on Twitter the other day that the class of 2022 eligibility ruling won't create an opening for players that are on NFL rosters
Right.
to now return to college. So like if you sign if you signed a pro contract, you cannot return to college. So there's that. So that takes those guys out of it. But like guys that like did not get signed, like what happens then, right? It's interesting. Like what about like for South Carolina? Like what about like a DQ Smith, for example? I haven't seen him sign anywhere. Not that I'm aware of. So what about a guy like that? I don't know. There's other guys potentially out there. This is interesting because the rosters are pretty much like set at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe there's like a way to add a guy. I don't know. There's more time for the other sports, right?
Sure.
Like baseball. We'll get to that in a second. You can add guys, but basketball, maybe, sure. I don't know if it's a little too late for that. But football, I don't know how it's going to work.
Yeah, and when, again, this was first announced on Friday night, I think a lot of people's minds went to, like, the DQ Smiths or the Brian Thomas Jr.'s, guys like that. Hey, if these guys don't make NFL rosters, could they come back and play college football? Well, that's not the case because more clarifications were put out over the weekend. For the class of 22 players who didn't enter their names into the transfer portal during the portal window will not be able to transfer. The roster limits remain unchanged. Athletes who are 20 or older at the start of the 5 years are not eligible per the injunction either. And again, if you're currently on an NFL roster, you can't suddenly come back to college. So that does limit the chaos of this a little bit, but nevertheless, and I don't know how many players are still eligible to do this based on who entered their names in the portal, but there'll be some guys, I don't know what schools they're going to or if they're going back to the schools they were at, that thought they were done with college football that are going to be able to play, and we'll see where they fit in.
Yeah, I wonder how many guys will actually end up getting, going to teams at the college level. I've seen Thomas Castellanos, the Florida State quarterback from last year, is open to returning to college, whether it's playing quarterback or being like an athlete and playing a different position potentially. So I think you're going to get some cases like that. I don't think just because of how late it is, if this took place in like May, we got this ruling here. Yeah, there's plenty of time to add guys to the roster, but it's August 3rd right now when we're talking about this. The season is a month away. So I don't know. I mean, camp is getting going this week for different teams. I don't know if you're really going to get a ton of additions this late in the cycle, but maybe I'm mistaken. Maybe there'll be a bunch of guys trickling in, returning to college, but I do wonder how much we see college football players returned at this point.
Well, if you're a team that has roster space and needs help at a certain spot, I'd be open to it, right?
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, if you have roster space, like Shane Beamer talked about it the other day, like he's wondering, like, do they have enough depth at safety? Who are the guys that step up behind Peyton Williams? Well, look, DQ Smith, what are you doing right now? Like, you want to come back and play safety for South Carolina? Like, it's very interesting to think about. And then also with Gamecock baseball, they added the pitcher from UConn the other day. Yep. So we'll see what that looks like. There's a lot of uncertainty right now with how it's all going to shake out, but it gives those guys seemingly an extra year, which I think is fair given the whole 5-for-5 thing.
Yeah, so at least for one South Carolina team, it does benefit them. Now we'll see if this preliminary injunction ends up holding up or not, because, again, it's always back and forth with this legal stuff. But for the time being, at least some guys or some athletes in the class of 2022 do have the option to return to college, and we'll see what becomes of that, and also the Protect College Sports Act as well. The big news of the weekend in the sports world was Tariq Skubal getting traded to the LA Dodgers. We'll talk about that coming up next. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Veltri on your Monday here on The Game. All right, welcome back in. It is the Extra Points. Tyler Head and Jack Veltri along with you here on your Monday on the game. Today is the day for the MLB trade deadline coming up today at 6 o'clock. Still time for moves to be made, but going into the weekend, there was one move that we were all anticipating. It was in our future headlines, which we'll rehash coming up at the end of the hour. But, spoiler, Drake Skubal is now a Los Angeles Dodger. Your surprise level is what?
Not surprised. Not surprised. I mean, my headline was literally, I guess we could spoil it here. Like, my headline was that he was going to be traded over the weekend. By Monday, we were going to be talking about Tarek Skubal being traded, and he was traded on what day? Saturday?
Yes.
Yeah. So it happened mid-weekend, and I was like, not surprised. And of course, he goes to the Dodgers. I will say this: there's a lot of controversy with this trade here, but it's not a surprise that he got traded, right? Not at all. I think it makes sense, right? Because the Tigers needed to. Because I did not see a world in which the Tigers were going to be re-signing Skubal. Like, can they afford that contract? Yes, I think that's the thing that we need to get into here. Is like any of these teams out there can go ahead and afford these contracts. Some owners just choose not to spend money. Meanwhile, teams like the Dodgers, they do. And so we'll see if the Dodgers end up getting Skubal locked under like a long-term contract before the end of the year or maybe in the offseason. But for right now, look, they have him for the next 2 months here in the regular season.
Yeah, and that's the thing because, again, and the Tigers, I think, are only 5 games out right now of a wild card spot in the AL standing. So still a team that on paper has a competitive or has the ability to be competitive and make it into the postseason. You've obviously now lost your ace, and your believability of being able to do anything in the postseason is taking a significant hit. But like Skubal talked about it pretty openly and publicly as the season was going along, that if he didn't feel like the Tigers were a more competitive team, then he was going to want to be traded, right? And that's what ended up happening. They have played better as of late. Let me pull up the standings here because, yes, they are only actually 2.5 games out of a wild card spot. I guess the 5 games would be where they sit in the, central standings. Okay, so even still, only a few games out of a wild card spot, but still not enough to turn the tide for how Skubal felt about things. So he knew he wanted to be traded, and obviously did. And they end up getting 3 prospects out of the Dodgers farm system, an outfielder, Zahir Hope, and then right-handers River Ryan and Brady Smith. But if you're a Tigers fan, how do you feel right now?
I don't think you feel great because these are, for reference, they're the Dodgers number 5. So Hope is the number 5 prospect for the Dodgers. Number 7, River Ryan. And then number 17 is going to be Brady Smith. And one of these guys, I don't know which one. I'm trying to pull it up here. But one of these guys is 28 years old.
It's
as a
River
prospect.
Ryan.
Yeah.
So he's 27. He's about to be 28
so
in a
it's
couple
like,
days.
You're getting guys that are, like, for reference. Let's put it into context. So back in January, the Yankees and Tigers were discussing a potential trade for Tarek Skubal during the offseason, and the Tigers reportedly asked for Cam Schlittler, Ben Rice, and George Lombard Jr. So for reference, if you guys don't know, Schlittler and Rice, both All-Stars this year. Schlittler probably would be the favorite right now to win the Cy Young Award out of the AL. Rice is one of the home run leaders in baseball, arguably the Yankees' best hitter right now with Aaron Judge out for extended period of time. And then Lombard's the Yankees' top prospect. So that's a pretty good haul that the Tigers were asking for at the time. Now, 6 months later, they're settling on a package that is far less, nowhere near as good as what they could have gotten. And honestly, what they should have gotten. Like, Skubal, I know, struggled a little bit after coming back from the injury that I thought would keep him out for a while. But he's kind of picked it back up to where he's pitching like the guy that everyone knows him to be. So I am surprised that, like, if I'm a Tigers fan, and I have a buddy that's a Tigers fan, so maybe I need to ask him about it for his opinion. But, like, I don't think this is a good haul for the Tigers. Like, I'm seeing that the Dodgers fleeced them, and honestly, I would agree. Like, you should be getting back pieces that are going to set you up for a long time here. And maybe they will. But I just don't feel like they got the best package that they certainly could have.
Yeah, and that's the thing that you have in Major League Baseball that you don't have in the NFL or the NBA, where when typically trades happen, you're getting guys that come in and are contributors right away because you're not typically, or there's no way to do it in the NFL. And sometimes you have some G League stuff, with the NBA, but typically you're trading main roster guys for main roster guys. Where in Major League Baseball, you do have these situations where you trade legitimately your best player and one of the best players his position in all of baseball for 3 guys who aren't going to be on the main roster anytime soon, right? Now, again, in the long term, can these guys end up working out in 5 years from now saying, man, the Tigers really won out on that trade? Yeah, that's possible. And we've seen those things happen in Major League Baseball before. But we're in an instant gratification society. If you're a Tigers fan, you just watched Tariq Skubal win the Cy Young the past couple of years. You've seen the Tigers make the playoffs and to get to the division round the past 2 years, and losing him does not help you get any better in that regard right now.
So then we get into the discussion that I think has been the next talking point from this whole thing. First, I think the way you look at this is Dodgers, they're set up to go for a three-peat.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like, they are an all-star super team, like Team USA baseball on a major league roster. Like, they're set up really well. Tigers, we'll see how it pans out. Dodgers have a pretty good farm system, so maybe the guys that they sent over, like maybe they didn't have to give up like their number 1, 2, and 3 prospects, but they give up like a pair of top 10 guys and then a number 17 overall prospect. Maybe those guys will pan out. But for right now, it definitely looks like the Dodgers won this trade without having to really give up much at all. Now the question becomes, because it's the Dodgers, I think a lot of people are like, all right, the Dodgers are continuing to just destroy the sport, ruin baseball. While I do not like the Dodgers, while I don't like what they're doing from the standpoint of they're just building up this roster to where they got superstars just everywhere. Like, it should not be possible to do what they're doing. But I think the Dodgers, I can't really blame them because I think they're just exposing a flaw within Major League Baseball to where there's no salary cap and there's no salary floor. They're taking advantage of a weakness that needs to change in the future, which I think with a lockout seemingly well on the horizon needs to be corrected next year.
Yeah, it's kind of to the question of, are the Dodgers ruining baseball? I think it's kind of a yes and no, because yes, to the standpoint of watching them acquire, as I said at the beginning of the show before we got in here, acquiring all these free agents like Infinity Stones, basically, to just build this super roster that's going to be next to impossible. Look, baseball's a funny game, and even the best teams don't always win the World Series, but the Dodgers really, once again, helped their chances of having a three-peat coming up later on this year. So that standpoint is something, as a fan, frustrating to watch, because you lose hope in your own team, right? We're like, all right, well, why should I watch the postseason? Because we just know the Dodgers are going to win the entire thing. But like you said, it does push exposing a flaw, right, where you're going to, now again, we're probably not going to have baseball next year, or at least for a large part of next year, which sucks, but you're potentially looking at maybe finding a way to get a salary cap in to prevent some of these kind of things from happening in the future.
Like, I'm sorry, teams need to spend money.
And a salary floor.
Yes. Like, there needs, and again, guys should be able to make as much money as possible, but at the same time, it's like, if there's no salary cap, then the Dodgers can just spend as much money as they want, which, look, there should be incentives to spend money. We know the Dodgers, Yankees, Mets, they're all going to spend a crap ton of money every single year. It's the teams that don't spend money. And look, not everyone's the Tampa Bay Rays. The Rays can choose not to spend money, and yet they're going to be right in the mix every year, because guess what? They have some of the best development in Major League Baseball without question. Like, they know what they're doing. Their system works. But there's only one Tampa Bay Rays, right? Otherwise, You'd have the Pittsburgh Pirates, the Sacramento A's. You'd have teams like that are doing exactly what they're doing and being just fine, because those teams don't spend money either, and yet they are not very good when it comes to the standings right now. So I think you got to have these cheap owners out there that don't spend money. Like, shoot, I'd love to have the Dodgers as my team being the ones that are spending money all the time. That's great. Like, yes, I love it as a Yankees fan when the Yankees decide to spend money. But I'd hate it, like, for the Tigers and the smaller market teams. They all have billion-dollar owners. Spend money. I don't understand, because then it's like you just have this problem of teams are spending money, and then there's teams that are not, and you just have a little bit of competitive imbalance.
We'll wrap up the hour next on your Monday on the Game.
The goal was always to win a World Series, for the city, for the organization. That took a chance on me. So, Yeah, it's tough. I love all those guys in there. They're some of my best friends, and yeah, it'll be tough for sure.
Like you said, going to a team like the Dodgers, having a shot to be part of history, how much does that mean to you?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, it's exciting. I'm excited. They got a good group. You hear everything across the way. I'm excited, though.
Welcome back in. It is the Extra Points. Howard and Jack Felcher wrapping up hour number 2 here on your Monday on the Game. That was the voice of Tariq Skubal over the weekend as he was getting ready to leave the Tigers and head to L.A., where he was there for yesterday's game after the Dodgers got swept by the Red Sox, but he'll take over, I believe, starting on Tuesday, I think, is when he's going to make his first start.
At Wrigley Field.
Taking on the Cubs there. Emotional about leaving the Tigers, of course, the team that drafted him, that he's been with for his entire MLB career. By the way, I'm still not used to looking at these guys, looking up how old they are and seeing that they're younger than me, which Tariq Skubal is. He was born like 5 months after I was. Regardless, besides the point. Yeah, he's only 29. I'm 30. But besides the point, he's going from Detroit, again, a team that's made the playoffs the past couple years, that's done better, to, again, the penthouse that is the Los Angeles Dodgers. Again, for our future headlines on Friday, we both predicted he was going to be traded. You just kind of went general. I said he was going to go to the Dodgers, so we both ended up being right on that one. And now, Jack, and for those that are wondering, the Dodgers rotation when the playoffs roll around could include Skubal, Tyler Glasnow, Blake Snell, Yamamoto, and then Shohei Ohtani.
Like, when those guys that's the thing. Those guys have to get healthy, but that's a really, really deep rotation to where, it's insane. It's insane just how much talent they have on that roster. And, that doesn't even include all the guys they have position players. Like, they were able to sign Kyle Tucker this offseason to a massive deal, and they have Mookie Betts and all these other players just everywhere on the roster you look. They have superstars right and left. But that's the thing about the Dodgers, is that, yes, they could sign anyone, but they also have so much good homegrown talent that they're able to develop and draft. Like, they are the best organization in baseball, hands down. Not even a question. You can hate them all you want.
Sure.
But you have to admit, they're doing it. Like, it's greatness what they're doing right now. If they get the three-peat, which I think they very much will, it's going to be one of those runs that we talk about for a long time.
Well, and yeah, the talent they've acquired through trades, through free agency, and all that kind of stuff speaks for itself. But there's a reason why they were able to pull this deal off the way they did, because of the talent that they've grown through their farm system. Again, they traded off 3 really good prospects, and none of them are the top guy. Right? I think River was number 4. Is that the best out of the group there?
Let's see. Number 5 is Hope. Number 5 is going to be Hope.
Okay.
Ryan he was also in the top 10, and then Smith was 17.
Yeah. 3 good prospects, but still not, they're not selling the farm for Tariq Skubal.
No, which is mind-boggling. And that's more a fault of the Tigers than anyone. Again, I read off that potential haul that the Tigers would have gotten from the Yankees. Schlittler, Rice, and Lombard. Top overall prospect for the Yankees and 2 All-Stars. And the Dodgers, they just traded 3 prospects. Guys that we don't even know if they're going to work out, which half the time it feels like prospects who don't even work out.
Right.
So kudos to the Dodgers for getting Skubal, right? They got him fair and square. It's not like they're cheating the system. It's the Tigers' fault for taking such a lousy deal when, maybe it pans out for them, but it's like, as of right now, the fact that they didn't get the Dodgers number 1 overall prospect, or even number 2, heck, it took all the way until the number 5 prospect. What are we doing here? That's the problem here. Is it's not so much the Dodgers. Yes, the Dodgers are the villain here, but it's really like the Tigers and the flaws with Major League Baseball that need to be exposed here.
It's really funny because the Dodgers, again, kind of an evil empire type of thing, but personality-wise, all the Dodgers players are very likable,
It's not,
right?
it's not like they have bad dudes or
yeah,
anything.
it's not like they have like a Harper that rubs people the wrong way. Like, I don't look at anybody on the Dodgers and like, oh, I hate that dude individually as a person. Like, nah, Mookie, Freddie, Shohei, Al Scooble, like they all seem like just good dudes, right? For the most part.
I would say so. Yeah. So it's a big deal here for the Dodgers to get him, but we'll see. Now the pressure's on.
Yep.
Right? Pressure's on to win it all, and if they don't, and they don't re-sign him, maybe the Tigers end up winning this deal. But right now, Dodgers are looking pretty good.
Yeah, we'll have to revisit this maybe a couple years down the line to see how that ages for both of these teams. That'll do it for the Extra Point. Coming up next, Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs here on the game. All right, welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour. Tyler Head along with you today on your Monday. Wes and Chris out today doing some stuff with GC. They'll be back in here tomorrow, and we'll be further counting down to the start of college football season. Getting only 33 days away from South Carolina and Kent State getting rolling. 26 days away from week 0, even though Wes Mitchell does not recognize week 0, still getting closer and closer to that. Hopefully everybody had a great weekend. As I said a little bit earlier, appreciate everybody that came out and hung out with myself, Flash Campbell, and everybody here on the 107.5 Game crew on Saturday out at Westco Brew and Bowl over there in West Columbia. Great time out there. I'd never been there before. Really cool setup they have. With the bowling, they got like a green space outside where we were set up at, a bar area, arcade, tons of stuff there to do for hanging out, events, parties, whatever it may be. So enjoyed being out there. Seems like we got a lot of school supplies for our school supply drive, which was the main reason why we were out there on Saturday. So that was really cool. And just had a good time. And Elijah and I spent the entire time just kind of previewing South Carolina and the upcoming college football season, as we were at that point in time 35 days away in exactly 5 weeks. And just enjoyed being out there. So again, appreciate everybody that came out there and those of you that brought school supplies to us as well. As we roll now into the month of August, college football is happening this month in 26 days with week number 0. It is officially camp week. Later on this week, on Thursday, Coach Beamer will give his pre-camp, preseason, address with the media. How much do we hear differently from what we heard a week ago or 2 weeks ago at media days? Probably not a whole lot. Maybe, if anything, more of an update on Peak and Stewart, where they are injury-wise going in to the start of camp. Assistants, players will talk. We'll get to hear from just about everybody coming up on Thursday to set the table for camp getting rolling on Friday. There'll be a viewing period, so Wes, Chris, and Jack will be able to go out there and get their eyes on this team as camp gets rolling. And I don't know what they're going to see. Is it stretching? Do they actually see some drills? We'll see. And they'll obviously report back in here after that and let us know what they did see and what the vibes are on day 1 of camp as we get started rolling towards the beginning of the college football season. So plenty to talk about with that as the week goes along. A lot of position battles still going on as we go into camp, as well as Beamer talked about, I believe, the other day at Birdies with Beamer as well. So a lot of things to figure out in the next month before toe meets leather against Kent State. Though Wes and Chris are not here, don't think that I've forgotten about our 33 days until kickoff trivia question. As I've done before when those two were both not here over the course of the summer at times, I put the responsibility on you, the listener. So I'm going to ask the question. If you know the answer, text in to our text line at 803-404-6100. And if you get the answer right, the first one to get the answer right, you'll get the point. And you can choose to attribute it to either Wes or Chris in terms of our countdown to kickoff trivia contest challenge. And for reference, real quick, Wes still leading 18.5 to 17 over Chris. So the last time I did this a few weeks back, believe the listener that got the question right attributed his point to Chris, just try and kind of close the gap. So you have the option to do that, or if you want to help Wes build his lead, you can choose to do that as well. It's completely up to you. Like I said, be listening, and if you text in the correct answer first, you have the option to choose where that point does end up going. So we are 33 days away from the season kicking off, and the number 33 brings us to Shane Beamer's win total at South Carolina. In 5 seasons now, he's coached in 63 games, winning 33 of them and losing 30. So the trivia question is, out of those 33 wins, how many of them have come against ranked opponents? And I mean ranked in terms of the day that the game was played, that other team has a number next to their name. Now, we know there are some teams, especially early in the season, that are ranked, don't deserve to be. And by season's end, they are nowhere near the top 25. Carolina was like that a year ago with themselves, being ranked, 13th in the preseason poll and then going 4-8 and missing a bowl game. So I'm asking this question from the standpoint of teams they played when they were currently ranked, whether it be in the KP poll or whether it be in the college football playoff poll, how many of Shane Beamer's 33 wins have come against ranked opponents? 803-404-6100. Got some submissions in. Don't have a right answer as yet. You guys are close. You guys are very close. But there's one specific answer, one number I'm looking for, and I go off of, if you look on the schedules on Gamecocks Online, they always put the ranked the ranking of the opponent when South Carolina plays them in the yearly schedule. So I'm going off the numbers from those schedules in terms of how many teams that were ranked when Carolina played them that Shane Beamer beat. Yes, we finally have a correct answer here. Greg from Sumter text in 7. 7 is the correct number of ranked wins that Carolina has in the Shane Beamer era. He's 7-20 against ranked opponents, to be specific, in his 5 years as a head coach. Greg, let me know where you want to attribute that point to for our trivia contest, whether it be to Wes or Chris. And for reference, to run through it, in 2022, they beat Kentucky, who was ranked 13th at the time. Of course, they beat Tennessee, who was 5th, and Clemson, who was 7th. In 2024, they beat Texas A&M, who was number 10. We all stormed the field for that one, too. A 24th ranked Vanderbilt, a 24th ranked Missouri. Those were in consecutive weeks, by the way. And then a 12th ranked Clemson team. Those are the 7 wins, again, based on what Gamecocks Online has listed as ranked opponents that South Carolina faced in the Beamer era. Those are the 7 times that Shane Beamer has picked up wins against those teams. Again, when you look at the overall record of 7-20 against ranked opponents, it is not great. And again, Greg, let me know where you want to put that point, whether it be Wes or Chris. 7-20 is not great, right? If you're looking for a shred of optimism, though, for what we're looking forward to in 2026, and I've said this many times, I could care less about 27, 28, 29. None of that matters if 2026 doesn't end up, if 2026 doesn't end up being a successful season for South Carolina. All 7 of those wins have come in even number years, right? We talk so much about the even year Beamer thing, right? Where for whatever reason in 22 and 24, those seasons have had their own dose of magic. At 8 wins in 2022 and 9 wins in 2024. Of course, 9 wins in 2024 got you on the cusp of the playoffs, as we said many, many times. So if you're looking for a reason to be optimistic, you're in an even number year, and you're going to need it. You're going to need that even year luck, whatever that magic is. Honestly, the even year Beamer thing probably deserves a deeper dive at some point, because the phenomenon of this is so interesting. And like, doing it once or having like one good year, one bad year, okay, whatever. Doing it multiple times, again, 5 years in, where the even years have been downish. I won't hold the first year against them because they massively exceeded expectations. But 22 and 24 being significantly better than the other two odd years is actually something that's pretty interesting. And maybe before the season gets here, we can take a real deep dive into why that is the case with Beamer in these even numbered years. But as I said, when you look at this upcoming year's schedule, in terms of beating ranked opponents, you're probably going to have to do that a few times, right? We are a couple of weeks away from knowing what the AP poll is going to be to start the season. And again, that's going to change so much between when we begin the season and how many teams Carolina will face ranked when that game does actually show up. But I'm just looking at Carolina's schedule for this year, and I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 teams that likely are going to be ranked in the AP poll before the season starts, that being Alabama, of course, in the playoff a year ago, Oklahoma, A&M, Georgia, also teams in the playoff one season ago, and then probably Tennessee too. Strong case there. Again, we do rank things off of what's changed in the offseason, stuff like that. We'll see if they hold, having a younger quarterback starting for them against them or not. But you're realistically looking at 5 different teams that could be ranked in the preseason poll prior to kickoff, coming up in early September. And again, we'll see how many of those teams are still ranked by the time Carolina gets to them. But again, if you want this season to be better, if you want to win, that 7, 8, 9 games as some people are hoping for, you're going to have to find a way to beat ranked teams. Multiple ranked teams at that, more likely than not, starting off with likely Alabama in week number 3. Now, they'll play Florida State, or week number 4, excuse me. They'll play Florida State and Kentucky, so if they theoretically lost both those games, yeah, they could probably be unranked by the time that matchup rolls around. I don't think they will. I think that's still going to be a team ranked somewhere inside the top 25, going on the road to them as you did a couple years ago when I don't believe, Carolina wasn't ranked at that point in time. Took them to the limit. They were ranked when they came in here last year, took them to the limit. So is this the opportunity for you to finally get over the hump, as we talked about the other day, that you just can't seem to beat Alabama for whatever reason these past couple of years, whether it be, costly turnovers late in the games, missing a 2-point conversion, just everything kind of falling apart in the last couple of minutes of the game last year. You're close, right? And that's going to be your first test as far as a ranked opponent goes. Could have Florida in week number 6 if they start off the season like 5-0, theoretically, yeah. Depending on what else is happening around the AP Top 25 and all that kind of stuff. But the majority of these potentially ranked teams are coming in the back half of your schedule where, again, I feel pretty confident saying Oklahoma, A&M, and Georgia definitely probably going to be ranked in all those games. We'll see about Tennessee in week number 8, the 7th game of the season. And then Clemson always has the opportunity to be a ranked team, right? Last year was a down year for them. They're retooling in a lot of ways. Do we think they're going to be as good as they were 2 years ago? I don't know many people that are, but you never know. And especially with how wide open the ACC is, they could be having a really solid year, and that ends up being another ranked game to wrap up your regular season. But again, Beamer's 7 wins against ranked opponents come in even number years. Here comes another even number year where if you want the season to be what this fan base is hoping for, you're going to have to find a way to probably consistently beat a couple of those ranked teams this year because there's probably going to be a lot of them on your schedule, and we'll see if Beamer can improve on that 7-20 mark against ranked opponents in his time here at South Carolina. We'll get back into what we heard last week at Birdies with Beamer. Let you hear from Kendall Briles coming up next in terms of how he's laying out his offense, particularly when it comes to the first couple of plays of the game. We'll also get into looking at experience, how much that matters, and how South Carolina stacks up to one pretty notable team from a season ago a little bit later on in the hour. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour. It's Outerhead flying solo. Wes and Chris will be back tomorrow here on your Monday on the Game. All right, welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour. Tyler Ed flying solo here on your Monday on the game. Wes and Chris will be back in here tomorrow. Greg, who got the text line or got the trivia question right on our text line, which again was how many ranked wins does Shane Beamer have out of his 33 so far in his South Carolina tenure? The correct answer is 7, and he has chosen to give Wes the point. So Wes is now up to a 2.5-point lead, 19.5 over Chris's 17 flat. They'll be back in here tomorrow for 32 days until kickoff. And I ask them typically, okay, guys naming dudes, who's your 32s? Give me your 32s on the text line at 803-404-6100 of who might be the topic for tomorrow's question. If I can't find interesting things about those guys, well, that's when I go to 32-point games, 32-yard touchdowns, things along those lines as well. And real quick, because you ever misremember something? Or you think, I remember that play and it happened this way or it was this many yards or whatever. I, for some reason, thought that the Rocket Sanders touchdown against Missouri a couple years ago was like a 30-ish yard play. So when I was thinking of today's trivia question, I'm like, oh, hey, let me go back and see how long that was. That might be something I can use for 33 days until kickoff. It's only 15 yards. I don't know why I just in my head made up the fact that it was like 32, 33 yards or something along those lines. But no, 15 yards. That was all that it was. Seemed like a longer run. I don't know. Maybe when we get to 15 days till kickoff coming up in a couple weeks, maybe that question will come back up. But, yeah, I was like, oh, I completely misremembered how long Rocket Sanders ran for to score that winning touchdown against Missouri 2 seasons ago. That was a year where the offense was, hey, doing some good things, especially down the stretch in those final 6 games where they won all 6 and made a case for themselves to be in the college football playoff discussion. Last year was a big step back with Mike Shula taking over as OC, and God, we've talked ad nauseum about how bad of an experience that was, which is why Kendall Briles was hired as this year's offensive coordinator, and we're hoping that things take a much bigger step back in the right direction. When it comes to the beginning of the year, right, where we can't wait for 33 days from now, we're finally going to see the Kendall Briles offense against Kent State. Is it going to tell us everything? No. Will the second game against Towson tell us everything? It won't. It won't be until week 3, week 4 that we really start to understand just how good, A, these players on offense are, and B, the offensive system that Kendall Briles has in place compared against SEC opponents and SEC defenses and all that kind of stuff. But we are going to be anticipating the beginning of the game against Kent State to just see it in some form or fashion, right? We didn't have a spring game. Wes, Chris, Jack, and all the media people, they don't get to go out there and watch them run scrimmages and stuff like that. So none of us have been able to put eyes on the Kendall Briles offense being run in a proper game setting here at South Carolina so far. We're going to find that out coming up in 33 days. And as every offensive coordinator does, Kendall Briles scripts out the first handful of plays of a game to kind of, set the tone for what the rest of the game is going to be like. And that's something that Jay and Terry asked him about last week when they were out there at Birdies with Beamer. And I won't lie to you, the number of scripted plays surprised me a little bit. We'll get into that after his answer here.
So I've started scripting about the first 6 plays, and I've done that about 3 years now, and maybe 4. But I think it's good. It allows, as a coaching staff, to target guys, get certain formational looks that you want to see. That way, you know how they're going to play them. So it allows you to do some things and target some guys as you want to get the ball. And then after that, you're playing football. And obviously you got your D&D calls that are going to be critical that go on within a drive. And then, the rest of the time you're rolling. And if you see things, then you hope that, if it's something that you haven't just, worked a ton and you're able to call it, our guys have recall and they're able to go do it.
So only 6-ish scripted plays, as he said he's done the past 3 or 4 years, which would be his entire tenure at TCU. And if you go back 4 years, that would be his last year when he was at Arkansas back in 2022. So that's an interesting answer there. First, as he kind of alluded to, why do we have scripts? Why do offensive coordinators script their first? And typically, most coordinators are in that 10, 15, even sometimes 20-ish play range for their first handful of plays of the start of a game. Kendall Briles is a 6. But you do it to really kind of feel things out, right? You have your set number of plays. You're going to try different things, certain run plays, certain pass plays, certain packages, 12 personnel, 13 personnel, whatever it may be. Mix in a lot of different things, kind of a hodgepodge of sorts of play variety from your call sheet in those first dozen or so plays to give you, A, the opportunity to look at the defense, how they're going to line up to it, how they're going to defend it, and B, see how successful you can be, right? If you have a certain play, like let's say Mike Shula's favorite, the inside zone, man, if that works the 3 or 4 times you do it in your scripted plays, guess what? You're probably going to do that a lot over the course of the game. If you do something else like a certain screen pass or something like that, or some kind of variation off of the RPO or the mix play, as Kendall Browse likes to say, that's getting blown up every single time, well, maybe we're not going to use that for the rest of the game because the defense clearly has that scouted well and figured out. It's all about flow, right? It's all about taking what you learn in those first however many plays you choose to script and use it for the rest of the game. This is something in scripted plays that Shula actually wasn't bad at last year, right? We all remember the start of the season where they marched right down the field and scored that opening touchdown against Virginia Tech. And at the time, we're like, this is great. That was probably, if we're going to be honest, that opening drive against Virginia Tech was probably the moment in the season for this fan base where everybody was the happiest, right? That was the most excited everybody in Gamecock Nation probably was for the stretch of the entire season, was following that opening drive touchdown against Virginia Tech because, well, there weren't a whole lot of other happy times after that en route to the 4-8. But that was one of 3 instances where Mike Shula scored a touchdown on the opening drive. Did that against Virginia Tech, Vanderbilt, and Kentucky. They scored an opening drive field goal against Alabama. And there were a couple other instances where they at least had good sustained success of moving the ball down the field on the opening drive as well. Now, they went deep into LSU territory and fumbled on the second drive of the game, but remember they fumbled on the opening drive with the bad snap. So Shula really didn't get to call any scripted plays on that one. So I kind of consider the second drive to be the first drive, so to speak, of the game for South Carolina down there in Baton Rouge. And then we all remember this as well. This was the same day that Jack and Beamer got heated with Jack for asking the question about maybe moving on from Shula, where they drove all the way down the field to Oklahoma's 3 and then ended up stalling out. Shula's play calls were bad down there, but nevertheless, they still went down there and were on the doorstep of the goal line, so they were able to move the ball early in the game. So Shula was good at that. He could script pretty darn well. It's just what happened after the script they struggled with. And different coordinators have different strengths. Not every single one of them can be a master of the chess match for the rest of the game, of adjusting and taking what you learned early and combating what the defense is doing and all that kind of stuff. And we'll see if Kendall Browse is going to be that. Again, it's a very low bar to clear, as we've said about many things with this offense compared to what Mike Shula was doing one season ago. But going back to the number that Kendall Browse said there, which was 6. He said, only have about 6 or so scripted plays that I've been doing that the past 3, maybe 4 years. That tells me his playbook is not probably very deep, right? And that sounds bad. It's not. You can have a very limited playbook and be very successful, right? You remember, this is a triple option offense, but when Paul Johnson was at Georgia Tech, he didn't have a play sheet. Heck, he didn't have a headset most of the time. But he had just a handful of plays where he'd, tell whoever the B back or up back or whatever going on the field was, what the play was, and they go out there and run it. A lot of variations off of the triple option, obviously, and they were successful at times with that. And to me, it sounds like when I hear only 6 scripted plays, that Kendall Browse is working with a much smaller play sheet compared to some other offense coordinators. Now, again, when you have things like what he calls the mix plays, the RPOs and stuff like that, you can do a variety of things with them because, again, every play is kind of 3 plays built into one, where Lenore Sellers can keep it himself, can hand it off, or choose to throw the football just based on what the defense is giving, how they react to the snap, and all that kind of stuff. So you can do a lot of things based off of simple concepts within an offense that Kendall Browse is going to be running. And again, he's not going to sit here and plop down his playbook in front of me and saying, hey, here's all my plays. But when I hear 6 scripted plays, that's what leads me to believe that it's probably on the smaller end. Now, again, we learned the lesson a couple years ago with Marcus Satterfield and his Denny's menu of plays and all the complicated wordings and all that kind of stuff that didn't work. back in 2022 and was part of the reason why everybody was so excited when he left, this job to go to Nebraska, where I think he's now still the tight ends coach. But that didn't work. And in college offenses, sometimes simpler is better. Having a limited amount of plays and having simplified play calls can be successful. And we'll see if those things translate, if that is indeed the way that Kendall Briles is going about his business this year as South Carolina's OC. We get asked the question earlier on the text line, by the way, of is Kendall Briles going to be calling from the booth or the sideline? And remember, this is a big thing with Shula a year ago because, again, Dow Longins had been to the booth when Shula was down on the sidelines working as the quarterback coach in the 2024 season, and we debated that all the way up to the start of the season. I've not heard Briles address this directly. Again, there'll be media availability later on this week where I think we'll get a chance to hear from him again. So we'll see if he wants to clarify on that. I'm trying to find pictures. I haven't seen any of him in the booth. I see him on the sidelines in some of these, but he's been in a lot of different places and may have done it in different ways depending on where he was at, personnel and the staff, and all that kind of stuff. But that is a good question that we don't at this time have a true answer to. Experience matters in college football. How does South Carolina's 2026 team stack up to the 2024 team? And how do they stack up to the best team in the country 1 year ago? I'll tell you about that coming up next. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour on your Monday here on The Game.
All right, guys, let me tell you about our friends over at Integrated Media, much like we do every single show. Hit them up today, 803-948-8327, or head on over to integratedmediainc.com. They've been to my house. They've been to Chris's house. Let them come to your house as well and upgrade pretty much anything involving audio or visuals in your home. Like I've said, for me, I've got a home office. We do our podcasts. We do our live shows. We do all that. My internet just wasn't quite up to what it needed to be, so we ran Ethernet into my office, making sure I was able to plug in hardwired. That may be up your alley, maybe not. Maybe you want to create a man cave. Maybe you want to upgrade the TV viewing experience right there in your living room for live sports. They can hang TVs, they can hide the wires, they can go surround sound. Or maybe you want that peace of mind for your family. You want to upgrade the security and the cameras at your home. They are experts in that as well. So if any of that sounds of interest, check it out right now. IntegratedMediaInc.com.
All right, welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour. Tyler Head flying solo with here on your Monday on the Game. Again, Wes and Chris will be back in the fold coming up tomorrow as we get closer to the start of camp later on this week and the start of the college football season coming up in a little over a month's time. 2 weeks ago at SEC Media Days, Shane Beamer was speaking about a number of things, obviously, but one of them was the value of the experienced guys coming back for another year here at South Carolina.
Yeah, I think it's really important. I think if you look across college football specifically, but college athletics, I mean, the best teams, in my opinion, year in, year out, are the oldest teams. You look at, Indiana last year. They had a lot of seniors on their football team, and that's what we have right now. And a lot of things have changed about sports and college athletics, but, one thing that hasn't changed about athletics ever is, when you've got an older team that's got a lot of really good leadership and high character guys, you got a chance to be successful. That was the case when I was playing high school sports back in the 1990s, and it's the case now in 2026 when I'm coaching in the SEC, and I don't think that'll ever change. And when you talk about the guys that we've brought, those guys, and everybody got on me back in 2022 because I didn't bring Spencer Rattler to SEC Media Day in 2022, but it wasn't anything against Spencer, as we had a lot of other guys on our team and seniors and that I brought, and that's what I believed in is leadership, seniors, and the guys that have invested in your program. And it says a lot about our place. And I've got 3 guys here with me today that all of them are going into at least their 4th year in our program. And when you got a lot of guys like that, which we do, to me it gives you a chance to be successful.
So I kind of go back to that first part there where he's talking about Indiana, right? And Indiana is the standard of everything that can go right in college football these days, particularly when it comes to the experience of the team. And the other day, we referenced this on one of the shows last week. Chris Clark on Gamecock Central wrote a really good piece where he compared the experience level in terms of total snaps played for this year's team going into this year compared to the team 2 years ago going to that year. And the numbers are pretty interesting, where going into 2024, the offense had about, and this is just for offense and defense, had about 10,000 snaps compared to 13,000 snaps for this year's offense. Where the defense 2 years ago had about 14,000 snaps compared to just a tick under 10,000 for the defense going into this year. Now, again, putting these things out there doesn't guarantee, okay, well, the offense can be more successful, the defense can be worse. It's just interesting to look at it from the standpoint of, okay, how experienced is this year's team compared to years past? And when you hear that, you say, okay, well, the defense may be a little bit of a concern because you're not as experienced as you were a couple years ago. But in remembering what Beamer told us, I wanted to take Chris's thing about a step further, right? Because he said the thing about Indiana, and again, they're the standard, and I'll go ahead and put this out there before I dive into these numbers. I'm not saying South Carolina is going to do what Indiana did, not saying they're going to go 16-0, win the national championship. That'd be awesome if they did, because that'd be really good for the purposes of the content here and obviously the fan base and all that kind of stuff. But I wanted to see how Carolina stacked up this upcoming season with what Indiana brought to the table last year, right? Because that was the thing with Cignetti. He had a ton of experienced guys at James Madison that he relocated to Bloomington, Indiana, in addition to a lot of guys at Indiana that hung around too, like Pat Coogan and stuff like that on the offensive line that, just had played a lot of college football. And that was a big reason why, despite the fact they didn't have a ton of blue chip guys, 4- and 5-star prospects out of high school, they were able to be successful as they were because they were such an experienced team. And for the reference, I followed Chris's model of how he did this based on positional breakdown. So 11 players on both sides of the ball. For offense, 1 quarterback, 1 running back, 2 receivers, 2 tight ends, 5 offensive linemen. And then defense, 2 edges, 2 defensive tackles, 2 linebackers, 5 defensive backs, one of those being a nickel corner. So I wanted to make sure this was as even as possible. So I went back and looked at last year's Indiana team and how their snap counts going into the year, overall experience-wise, compares to South Carolina's. Offensively, Indiana snap count a year ago on offense, 13,909. Carolina's this year, 13,656. About a 300 snap count difference there. Defensively, last year's Indiana team, 11,012 defensive snaps in total. This year's Carolina team, 9,449. So about 1,500-ish snap difference between the defense. A little bit more of a disparity there. But offensive numbers, pretty darn close. And again, when you couple an experienced offense, what we think is a really good play caller in Kendall Briles, that could be a recipe for a lot of success, right? And to dive into it a little bit further, because I want to take this detail too, I looked at Indiana's offensive line. One of the best in college football last year, right? Going into the year, combined career snaps for that offensive line, starting 5, 6,553. For South Carolina's this year, 7,661. Again, doesn't guarantee anything. Doesn't promise success. I'm not sitting here saying Carolina's going to replicate what Indiana did offensively or as an entire team. Be great if they did. We're cheering for that. We love that. But I do think it's interesting to look at it and say, okay, well, when we hear Beamer talk about his belief in this team, when we hear Beamer talk about why he thinks this year is going to be successful, you can look at some of these numbers. As he said, that's how you build things in college sports. You have experienced guys. I mean, you do. It's always been that way, but especially in today's world of college sports, where there's a lot less continuity and carryover from season to season, because you used to be able to look at teams, right, and say, okay, well, here's this group of like 12 guys that have played 3 or 4 years of football together coming back for another year. But you don't quite have that as much anymore because you have so many guys in the portal and so much roster turnover and all that kind of stuff. I think career snaps, total years played, and all that kind of stuff is a lot more valuable now. And again, just a rough overview of the numbers, not promising success. Don't sit here and say that I'm guaranteeing you Carolina's going to do anything akin to what Indiana did a year ago. Great if they did. We'd love to see that. But I like the track that you're on based on how this roster is built, especially on offense, the experience that they have, that I think and hope and pray, we all do, that it's going to lead to more success this year, to where we're having just a more fun season, right? Last year wasn't fun. 4-8 wasn't fun. Going on a losing streak in the middle of the year wasn't fun, and it's our job to talk about it here, for the guys to write about it on Gamecock Central, so we have to stay engaged, right? I know a lot of you checked out halfway through the year and find other things to do with your Saturdays and all that kind of stuff. That's fine. I understand that. We still got a job to do. We still got to talk about this team, good or bad. And I'd much rather talk about a good football team than a bad football team. And again, if these numbers are any indication, I think we're in for a better year. Again, defensively, you're a little bit off compared to what you had 2 years ago and what Indiana had, but we like the skill level of what you have on defense at certain spots. Edge, linebacker experience, guys like Gabe Dindy in the middle, what you have returning in some of the defensive back spots too. So while the numbers don't quite stack up, and look, the Clayton White defense was good a year ago with a lot of these same guys returning, you still have a lot of belief that side of the football going to be pretty good as well. So hopefully, the experience matters for South Carolina like it did for the Indiana Hoosiers last year en route to them winning the national title. We'll come back and wrap up the hour, wrap up the morning with a review of buy or sell and let you know what's going on at the MLB trade deadline as well. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour here on your Monday on the Game. All right, welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour. It's hour ahead, wrapping up the hour in the morning here on your Monday on the game. Again, Wes and Chris out today. They will be back in tomorrow. A lot of things to catch up on from the weekend, and again, getting you closer to camp starting on Friday, and then again a little bit closer to the college football season rolling in 26 days for week 0 and 33 days for South Carolina and Kent State. But as we do every Friday going into the weekend, even through the dog days of summer, which, my goodness, we're so close to getting out of that, so close to having just wall-to-wall football and things like that show up on Buy or Sell. We had 3 Buy or Sell questions from Friday, and we'll recap those. Question number 1, because, again, it was the biggest sports story of the weekend going in. Tyreek Skubal won't be a Tiger by Showtime on Monday. We all bought that, and lo and behold, that did end up being correct as he was traded from the Tigers to the Dodgers midday, afternoon, late afternoon, whatever it was, on Saturday to make the Dodgers that much more of a World Series favorite as they look for a 3rd in a row. Skubal, again, a couple Cy Youngs in a row, and had done a lot of heavy lifting for that Tigers team these past couple years. Traded him for 3 prospects in the Dodgers farm system. We'll see how well that works out for the Tigers in the long run. But for the time being, that just makes an already strong Dodgers team that has dealt with some pitching injuries and stuff this year that much stronger as they look for yet another World Series title. And real quick, as we're talking about the trade deadline, the Atlanta Braves been active in the past couple days as well. We knew that they would be. They were going to need some help at the plate as well as some depth in their pitching as well. Over the weekend, they acquired left fielder Lane Thomas from the Kansas City Royals. The idea is kind of have him primarily hitting left-handed pitching as a Mike Yastrzemski, their usual everyday left fielder. Just doesn't face left-handed pitching a whole lot and struggles when he does, so they bring in Lane Thomas for that. Also got Luke Falter from Kansas City as a left-handed pitcher himself. He's going to report directly to Gwinnett, so that's more kind of a pitching depth thing as of right now. Their biggest acquisition, at least of the weekend, was Tyler Mahle from, or Mahle, however you pronounce his last name, San Francisco. He dealt with a hamstring injury earlier on this year in May, but 18 total games pitched this year, 5.13 ERA. Did have 9 strikeouts, which was a season high for him against the Padres in his last start on Saturday, though he did also surrender 5 total runs. And just from the past hour, we've learned that the Braves have acquired left-handed reliever Brent Suter from the Angels. They exchanged him for Nacho Alvarez, going out there to L.A. Suter, 36 years old, been around the league for a while. Let's see, it's been pretty active this year in terms of relief outing. I haven't had a lot of time to dive into him because this thing just happened a little bit earlier on, but gave up 2 scoreless innings of work when he last pitched on Saturday for the Angels in their loss to the Milwaukee Brewers. No hits allowed, no earned runs, 3 walks, and 1 strikeout. So, again, he has a little bit more depth to the bullpen for the Braves, which, again, they need help in a lot of ways as they're looking to position themselves for hopefully a postseason run coming up here in, we're in August now, coming up in just 2 months' time once October does roll around. And as they had a clean sweep of the Nationals over the weekend, still sitting really well in the NL East standing. Speaking of which, that brings us to question number 2 of Buy or Sell from over the weekend. Would Ronald Acuna Jr., who hit his first home run since late May on Thursday night in Game 1 against the Nationals, would he hit another home run over the weekend? And yes, indeed, he would. He would have a homer in, I believe it was Friday's game. Double check on that. I know I should have wrote this down. But Saturday's game, he had another home run. 2 home runs on the weekend for Ronald Acuna Jr., bringing him up to 9 total on the season so far, as he's, again, kind of rounding back into form after being out for so long with that injury. And finally, the last one, which by the way, myself and Chris both bought on that. Wes did sell on that, thinking Acuna just kind of need to get back into the rhythm a little bit. So we got that one right. And then finally, the last one, as it was SummerSlam weekend for WWE, would Trick Williams retain his United States Championship over Baron Corbin last night at SummerSlam? Unfortunately, does not happen. Baron Corbin, through nefarious tactics, did hit Trick Williams with the belt when the referee wasn't looking, did end up winning the United States Championship for the second time in his WWE career. So unfortunately, our boy Trick Williams does have to go back to the drawing board in terms of chasing the title. We'll see, what the plans and where they decide to go with this character and all that. He's still as over can be. The fans love him. The company seems to love him. So I think he's going to be just fine. And, hey, sometimes losing your mid-card title, which is what the United States Championship is, can be a stepping stone to you getting more towards the main event scene. We'll see if they decide to do that with Trick Williams or not, but he does end up losing the title over the weekend there. So there you go. There's your buy or sell for over the weekend. Again, slower weekend in terms of inching closer to football season. Hey, we got Thursday night. We got the NFL Hall of Fame game, so we'll finally get some football action on the TV coming up later on this week. And then we'll be off and rolling with preseason action across the NFL next week. And then before you know it, we'll be kicking off college football with Week 0 as well. That'll do it for the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour. Coming up next, halftime show. Scott Hamilton hanging around. I'll be here for about an hour, and we'll talk about all kinds of things with that coming up next on your Monday here on The Game. As we wrap up here, before we get into the halftime show, let me tell you about our friends over at Firehouse Subs. Yes, indeed. You've heard us talk about it many, many times before. Firehouse Subs is the place for the best sandwiches around. My goodness, we've been out to just about all of our friend Larry Chandler's locations here around the Midlands and tried just about everything on the menu. Just the other week, my wife and I were out on a Saturday saying, you know what, we need some lunch. Where are we going to go? Well, of course, we went to Firehouse Subs. I enjoyed my favorite, the turkey bacon ranch with a side of chips and, of course, a drink from the Coca-Cola Freestyle machine. And you can, too. Here, tons of locations around the Midlands. You can also do the Rapid Rescue to go on the Firehouse Subs app. That way you can order, walk in, grab your bag of food, get your drink, and head on right out the door to wherever you want to take it. Appreciate our friends at Firehouse Subs, as always, for supporting the show.